Environmental issues have persisted and existed for several decades, yet the environmental scene continues to persist or even get worse as time progresses. To combat this project looks at indifference. What are these factors that determine whether well-developed countries and populations determine to be engaged or disengaged with the environment? There are so many factors that influence how someone views the environment. From education, from media, from regional factors. All of these factors are important in terms of influencing on how one person is engaged or indifferent toward the environment. To understand how these investigative factors produce this environmental indifference, you have to look at what causes what. Looking at human development or income or education, that determines the access and opportunities one receives. These opportunities can in turn create either an awareness or oblivion to the environmental issues of the current day. In return, that makes you either engaged or indifferent with the environment, producing and altering your practices that may or may not produce large ecological footprints that may or may not also be sustainable. One factor includes greenwashing. Greenwashing is an act where businesses attempt to market their products as environmentally friendly, but actually do not carry any environmentally friendly practices. Most of the time you see this labeled as eco-friendly or green products, and this is purely for a capitalistic standpoint, making you believe that their products are good for the world. In a study where they looked at brand perception based on greenwashing versus typical advertisement, the study revealed when you pair high performance statistics with greenwashed or general ads, the consumer attitude is generally the same. However, when you have a low performance statistic paired with greenwash ads, those ads tend to do worse compared to the generic ads. However, an interesting point to bring up is when you don't include ads at all and purely give statistics, high performance statistics do far better than both the greenwashed or general ads, revealing how society is conditioned to be distrustful of any claims or advertisements that businesses do. Many daily brands and companies are guilty of greenwashing. Ice Mountain, Ziploc, BP, Aquafina are major manufacturers of products that have huge ecological footprints and impacts. However, yet they continue to brand themselves as environmentally friendly and conscious, promoting recycling, biodegradability, and overall efficiency with the environment to promote the consumer eye and, in turn, create profit. And oftentimes, we don't realize it, perpetuating this cycle of greenwashing. This greenwashing cycle is just going to continue perpetuating the eco-friendly product line when they're most of the time are not. And when greenwashing does become exposed, the consumer begins to distrust the entire market and begin conditioning this feeling that the businesses have essentially capitalized society and they can't do anything to prevent this environmental capitalism. They feel as if all of their environmental efforts to become eco-friendly is essentially nullified due to this capitalistic point of view. Another factor is mass media representation. There's so many different aspects that go into how you consume media. The newsletters, TV shows, movies, all of these aspects influence how you perceive the world, especially the world that one does not experience first-hand accounts on a daily basis. In a study conducted from February 2012 to July 2012, Fox News Channel only 7% managed to portray environmental issues accurately, while 93% are purely inaccurate. 73% undermine climate science, 54% continue to mock climate science, and 27% have a misled debate. This continuous perception of the environment being a lesser priority and this mocking and undermining of it continues this conditioning that environmental issues are not important. They are not a priority. And that conditioning is going to be a huge impact in terms of how populations are indifferent to the environment. Media is also so important because it's sometimes the only opportunity people can get to experience things that they don't take into account in their daily lives. Global warming, for example, has the least impact on the United States compared to other countries. Because of this, the media needs to portray environmental science and environmental issues more accurately for people to understand the extremity of the issue. When the media does not do that, it conditions society to believe that the environment is something we can push back. The environment is something that is not a priority at the moment. It is with that conditioning that determines the indifference that we continuously face today, especially when the ones that are creating the most harm are not experiencing the effects firsthand. Another aspect which people can learn and become aware about things is through educational opportunities. In a study with college students, they looked at how one environmentally geared educational activity has impacted their results in answering common misconceptions about the environment. Without this activity, only 29% managed to get a true and false question correct. While with that activity, we saw an increase up to 82% actually getting the question correct, which is 189% growth. We see this with other questions also, and this continuous growth this reveals how one simple, effective educational tool can create such a mass shift in attitude and understanding, and how the current education system fails to effectively teach the misconceptions and awareness of the environment. With this lack of effective education, people who even can get an education are still not learning the true extreme issues of the environment. And that's not going to allow the shift to a path of sustainability that we are currently not in, let alone any indifference and engagement we have today. One of the most preventable yet prominent issues we have today is the plastic epidemic. No longer is this specifically a scientific domain. Everyone contributes to plastic, and everyone can reduce their plastic waste too. Single-use plastic specifically, often used in packaging, makes up the majority of all plastic usage and generation. Single-use plastics are not only detrimental due to the mass production of them, but due to the ratio between its biological degradation and its lifespan. Used for purely 3 minutes at most, it takes over 3 centuries to degrade it, and that lifespan and the amount of usage of it makes it a very deadly plastic. On top of that, single-use plastics are one of the most preventable plastics we produce. Being purely for convenience majority of the time, we can easily replace these with more reusable alternatives, merely sacrificing a slight convenience. This convenience that single-use plastics produce also carries huge environmental issues and impacts alongside with it. From microplastics coming into our food system, even endangering marine animals, and even carrying some BPA safety issues, the cons with single-use plastic is completely overweighing its pros. This issue is also very limited in terms of who can get involved in the path to sustainability. This convenience lifestyle from single-use plastics is purely based on well-developed countries. Less developed countries, their lifestyles are completely based on survival, using the environment at very minimal usages, while well-developed countries have extreme ecological footprints, up to 20 times of less developed countries, purely based on the lifestyle. Current efforts to combat these issues are also being nullified recently. For example, with recycling, previously 75% of all of our recyclable exports were directly shipped to China and Hong Kong. However, recently, China and Hong Kong have prevented and closed their doors to recycling. Because of this, American recycling industries are forced to put their recyclable products back into the landfills, as there's no country, or at least a group of countries, that can accumulate as much exports as China and Hong Kong used to do. And without recycling, this only further emphasizes the environmental struggle and the extremity of the issue we deal with today. Local cleanups are also implemented, however, they're most of the time very local scaled and expensive, and also labor intensive. Because of this, this is often a very low impact and also unsustainable. To combat this issue, we need to start reducing our plastic usage and prevent the plastic from reaching our landfills in the first place. In order to do that, people need to understand and be aware of the extremity of the issue, whether that's through accurate media or more effective educational courses.